Hey folks, how y'all doing today? Jaime of JLd Instinctive Archery here on the Wingman 115 channel, coming at you with a little review on my knife sharpening kit that I take out into the field. So stay with us, we'll be right back. Hey folks, thanks for joining us here on the Wingman 115 channel, finally back out into the woods. I'm very thankful for that, here with my buddy Wingman. So I wanted to just kind of briefly talk about some of the gear that I bring out into the field. My last video, I spoke of my Self-Reliance Outfitters Canteen kit and bag, how that's kind of set up for just a day out walking around, and in case things go a little sour, I got some survival kit stuff. What I'm going to talk about now is my Knife Sharpening Field Kit. This is not carried obviously in that Canteen setup, it's in my day ruck, and I'll probably do a gear dump of that sometime soon. But I just kind of wanted to highlight this. People seem to be very interested and curious about how I maintain my knives out in the field. So I'm going to end up opening this guy up, and that way, and we're going to change the camera angle so you can have a better look at this, because I'm going to go ahead and pull everything out and briefly talk about what it is and why I use it and all that good stuff. So stay with us. Right now we're going to change angles. Okay folks, welcome back. I do apologize, my face is not on the screen, but I wanted to get a good overview of what we got here, and I can point things out and get descriptive on it. So I'm going to start off with the actual pouch itself. So this is, for those of you that recognize it, it's a military weapons, primarily a M16 rifle cleaning kit pouch. And I carried this pouch with me when I was in the military for the years that I was in, going back to, oh man, I'm going to say it, on 91 to 94 in the Army, and then going into Naval Special Warfare from 98 to 2000, just a couple of years in the Navy. But anyways, the point is that this housed my weapons cleaning kit, and it did have the Alice clip on there. I have since removed it since I'm not attaching it to any particular webbing. This goes in a pack. So this is something that is simple to find at any surplus store. You could probably find it online. Whether or not it comes with an M4 platform cleaning kit or any AR type system, who knows? But the bag itself, it's pretty inexpensive, and the Velcros has stayed still attaching without any issues for all those years that I've had it. So it's got a lot of sentimental value for me, from United States, Kansas, Georgia, to South Korea, Germany, all over the place. So there's a lot of sentimental attachment, but it's been very useful, very lightweight. If it gets wet, it dries up really quick. So enough about the pouch. Now this here cleaning toothbrush, even though personal hygiene is good, I do not use it for my teeth. This is part of the original weapons cleaning system, but I keep it because I use it for maintenance on my diamond stone. So I'll get more on that, on the maintenance factor of the stone, here in a bit. So that is that did come with a kit, military issued. All right, so let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of what it is that I utilize for cutlery out in the field. Typically, I'm going to say 90% of the knife sharpening that I do, if I do any out in the field, it's not for my knives, it's for other people's knives, to be completely honest. So I still carry it with me in case I ding a blade and I get a little chip and I got to work on it. That's why I have this with me. But most of the time I maintain my knives, and they'll last for whether it's one day to a few days out in the field. So I'll start with, let's say I did damage my blade, or someone approaches me and they got a blade that's in bad shape, which is normally what happens. I go straight to my sharpener, which is the Easy Lap diamond sharpener. It's a pocket folder. If you notice, I got the letters F for fine, C for coarse. Now, when I first bought it, they had some stickers that have since fell off, but I knew where to place the markings so I wouldn't forget. So this is a very common sharpener, pocket sharpener, and there's different companies that make them in this type of almost like a Bali Song butterfly knife configuration. So Easy Lap is not the only one that makes them. I did showcase another one that I carry in my day kit, my Canteen kit, and I did say, actually I'm going to break it out real quick. I did mention that it has a type of manufacturing that I do not favor, but I keep it in there just in case I need it. So it's there with me if I need, again, that same type of a volley song type of configuration. This is a fine. This is made by DMT. There's the company name, DMT. The reason why I favor most of the Easy Lap products, if you notice, there's a big difference here. The Easy Lap is all metal with the commercial grade diamond particles impregnated into it, whereas the DMT, it's got this plastic that's mounted into it, or molded injection, whatever the term is, but that's how it's being retained, and you can see the thinness. The reason why I don't like that is I've noticed a few times as I'm sharpening a blade that the points may dig into that little plastic circles that you see. So that was an issue that I started to realize, and even though I have it, I keep it in case I need it. And like I said, it's in that day kit, and it packs well. It's much lighter because this is double-sided, so it's heavier. So that other one, I keep it in that Canteen kit. It's there if I really need it. But this is the one that I'm going to favor, again, because of the coarse and the fine. The only time I really use the coarse, though, is if there's a blade that is chipped, microchips, or even if the tip of a blade, I've had to help out a few people that have the front end of their knives that they've broken it off, and I've been able to completely transform those front ends, whether it's into an extreme belly curve or a tonto shape, or even more of a shark tooth or diamond tip. That's where it's got almost like a what do you call it? A stabbing type point. But whatever. The point is that this course works really well, but I rarely need it because the fine does just a great job. Another quick tip or thing to know about diamond sharpeners, as I have watched other YouTubers review these freehand sharpening diamond sharpeners, when you purchase one of these, especially with Easy Lap, and there are some other ones that are this full metal, they come really coarse. Another one that comes to mind is the Work Sharp. I love that pocket one, and that's in a kit where the actual diamond plates have magnets on them, and they can come off, and they're great. They're great. They even have an angle on each side that you can lay the blade on. But both for that Work Sharp pocket sharpener as well as with this one, these diamond plates, they come very coarse. So I have watched people try to sharpen the knife on that brand new one, and it's like nails on a chalkboard. There's a lot of dust and grit. So my recommendation, whenever you get a brand new one, go ahead and get like a sponge or a paper towel and get some water on it, and then use either a very dull knife or a machete, basically something that you're just wanting to scrape. You're not necessarily sharpening the tool. What you're doing is you're breaking in the actual plate itself. You're going to remove a lot of that pre-manufactured grittiness because it's almost too much. If you were to run your finger on these, they just feel like slick metal plates. You almost wonder how that works to remove the metal off the knife. But you want to get it to this stage. Otherwise, it's just too coarse. I always do recommend using a little bit of water on these. So when I'm out in the field, I take my Canteen cup, whether I'm just running some water or if I got a rag, run that rag on there. And it also acts as a way to trap the metal that's coming off and keep it in the water. It's not going to clog the pores. It can build up. That's the beauty about diamond as opposed to the natural stones. Natural stones, you got to have that water. You got to have the oils or whatever to keep those pores from clogging up. But with these, I use the water more just to kind of keep that metal from, or the coming off the knife from building up, even though the diamond will still work. But going back to what I was saying, you do want to break these in when they're brand new, and just take like a really dull, crappy knife, just more for the benefit of keeping that smooth. So with this alone will tune up any knife. And again, with the sharpening of a freehand, that freehand skill, you need to learn how to maintain those angles, regardless of if you're doing a circular method or an aggressive back and forth, or you're just doing the simple, from base to tip. It's going to work. It's going to remove metal a lot faster. And because of the ease and convenience of not being a natural stone, I don't have to worry about so much of the maintenance. Now, there are those natural stone, Japanese stone aficionados, and that requires a little bit more to do that I don't want to deal with. You got to soak those in. If you're out in a field environment, you got to have the proper gear for that, and you might need multiple stones in order to go from a coarse, medium to a fine. For me, that fine grit just does everything. Again, the only reason I use a coarse is if I got some really bad chips, or if there's the tip of a knife that someone broke off and I got to reprofile everything. But for the most part, really, at the end of the day, this is all I need. But because I like to get my knives stupid sharp, then we're going to go on to the next step. Now, I'm going to do a quick sidebar. If someone's got a serrated edge, that's where the cylindrical ones come in. Now, I forgot what brand this is, but it's not Easy Lap, but I'm pretty sure it was like a Gerber, Smith. Yeah, I can't remember because the case, I removed the clip that had the markings. There was like a little pocket clip. But you can see, because it is cylindrical, if you got a serrated edge, it's going to get into all those little concaves in between the teeth. And this one, and this isn't nothing new. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this before. So you got a flat end and also these cylindrical sides, and it has many applications. You even got a groove here for a fish hook. So this is a handy tool, again, primarily for serrated edges. If someone comes to me and they got a serrated knife that's got some issues on it. So that's pretty much it on the diamonds. I mean, I could talk for days on it, but just simple Easy Lap, coarse and fine, with a cylindrical capable type of, with a telescopic retractable diamond rod, for lack of a better term, that's tapered. So these can pretty much be all you need for out in the field. Really, that's all you really need. But I do like to take things to the next level. So with diamond stones, and here's where we're going to get into a little bit of a divide in philosophy. So there's two schools of thought, especially with the old school woodsmen. If you talk to some of the more old school woodsmen, they speak of not having a knife too sharp, that it could be way too sharp, meaning when it comes off of a stone, there's a certain amount of toothiness, for lack of a better term, abrasiveness, almost like micro serrations. And old school mentality says to keep that toothiness, because that's gonna last longer than a very clean type of cutting edge. Now, I am a fan of a clean cutting edge because I'd rather get cut by a clean cutting edge, which is going to heal faster on the skin if that were to happen. And it just pushes through stuff a lot cleaner. So in order to get to that, then we get to our diamonds. I'm sorry, not diamond steels, just a butcher steel. Now, this is a miniature version of what you would find in a kitchen. I bought this steel years ago. It's probably 20 plus years old. I've had it since I was a teen. So I couldn't even begin to tell you where to find something. I've never really looked for it online because I haven't had the need. But from all the butcher steels that I've seen now for the kitchen, something that's a 12, 16, 18-inch butcher steel, they're pricey. They're up in the 50s. So again, I must have bought this in the late 80s. Probably didn't pay much. Probably picked it up at an Army surplus store where all the kids went to Toys R Us and whatnot. I was going to an Army Navy store and buying stuff. So this is what I go to after I'm done with the diamond stones to start removing the toothiness. Now, there are some people that strongly disagree in using a steel. They say that may change the angle of the blade. And I'm talking V-grind here. We'll get to convex stuff and convex maintenance closer to the end of this video. But for me, this works great for all grinds, whether it's a V or a convex, and that's just on that final edge, that final bevel. So once I'm done with that guy, you guys probably already noticed where I'm going here. Then I get to my strop. Now this is just a simple piece of leather that it wasn't that fuzzy on the fleshy side, skin side, flesh side, that suede side. And so, there's different schools of thought. You could get really geeky on strops, but hey, you could tell there's a difference here. It's a little fuzzier here, a little flatter here. I did put a green compound. It's of a fine compound, and you could already see the black from the use. So here, basically, you see the representation of the stages that I go to, from that diamond to the steel and then to the strop. Now, the strop comes even more handy when it comes to convex edges, very much like the Mount Laguna from Work Tough Gear.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Now, this is a convex edge knife. If I do happen to ding it, then if there's a big chip, and I've done this with like bark rivers and Falcon Evens, I have put them on stones, but you have to know, have a good idea of a rocking motion so that you don't flatten out that convex that is on those edges. Because if I just stay on that stone, I'm going to ruin that beautiful apple seed that's going on. So there's a type of a rocking motion if I need to take it, but for the most part, for any convex edge, touch it up on a rod, but primarily on a strop. Now, those that are hardcore geeks on convex edges, again, your Bark River fanboys and Falcon Evens, they're going to have multiple strops with different types of grit on the compound. So they can really take a dull convex edge and hit it on a coarse, medium, and then eventually a fine. This, because I have my system in play, this is all I really need for this type of a convex edge in regard to my field applications. But I know how to fix that with what I got if I run into trouble and I hit a rock, or I lend it to someone and they're doing something stupid. So be careful when you lend your blades to somebody. Speaking of kind of going back to when I was referring to the serrated edges, I made a serration specific strop. So if you can notice, probably difficult to see, but there's a little bit of green compound on this suede fleshy side. So here's a blown up version of some convex edge, I'm sorry, not convex, serrated edges. So I would take this and just run it in one direction. Obviously you don't want to go into the cutting edge, so like a strop, I focus on one on each little concave of a serrated blade. So that's how that little guy works. I just came up with that method so that when I'm done using that tapered conical cylindrical diamond rod on a serrated edge, then I can go ahead and polish it up with this little guy, and it works amazing. So it just takes again to that other level. So that's kind of about it, folks, in regard to what I like to take out. Now, this subject we can really go into a lot more. I did touch upon a couple things. For example, the concept of what if, are we taking our blades to too much of a sharper level? Or do we want to keep it in at that toothiness just from a stone and leave it there, you know, to have those micro serrations? Or do we want to take it all the way to that steel and then to the strop? On a kind of on a different level, my broadheads that I have for deer hunting, on those I take it all the way to razor sharp, and even there's an argument, not an argument, but a difference of opinion where people say no, keep it toothy, the broadhead, because when it's going through that deer, if it's razor sharp, then that wound might heal quicker. So that's a belief system or a thought process for maintaining it kind of toothy. But that's a whole other topic of conversation. But in regard to any of my sharpening implements, I do want to get them as sharp as I can. It's just, that's my experience. I'd rather have it that way than on that toothy side. Touching upon the convex, I mentioned that you can ruin a convex edge on a flat stone. I know Falcon even, they tell their customers that they can use their DC4, those DC4s that come with some of the more higher end pro models, to go ahead and use that. And I'm surprised that they say that. I would think that you would want to kind of give it a rocking motion. For some of those other knife sharpening buffs out there, they're well aware of that, and they give it a good rocking motion for those convex edges. Now let's talk about the Scandi. Now the Scandi, because it's of that simple flat angle of just laying it on the stone, that would work great on a flat stone, and it's very user friendly. But you can run into a problem, whether it's possibly on the steel, possibly, but even more so when it comes to the strops. The reason being, you know, the Scandis are great for woodwork. They're great, but knife manufacturers have noticed that when you start kind of venturing out of that genre, there's a chance of chipping them because they come to such a fine angle. That's one reason. I hope I'm not talking out of place here, but for the Mount Laguna, again, for the Mount Laguna from Work Tough Gear, they began, John, Wingman 15, he did begin with a Scandi, but quickly Work Tough Gear realized that they needed to toughen it up or make it a little bit more resilient. So they did go with the convex grind. Now we know that Bark River and Falcon even, they've been rocking the convex. And for those that know the story behind the convex and how great it is. Another example though of getting away from a Scandi, and this is one of the reasons I like this knife. It's been around for a while, the good old Brachimo from Tops Knives, designed by Joe Flowers. This has what appears to be a Scandi grind, but guess what? Then it's got that second little bevel there so you got almost like a double V grind because of the toughness that it presents. So whether it's convex, well, I'm getting away from what I was going to explain, and that is that if you do have just a pure Scandi and you sharpen it up and then you want to go and strop it, you got to be careful because it can actually almost convex it and dull it. I guess that's what I'm really trying to tell you guys. If it's 100% Scandi grind, there is a chance that if you got that spine raised up a little bit too high, that you might start to dull that thing up. So even with a V-edge, I try not to raise that spine up too much because it's happened to me. So there's a way you can actually kind of screw it up if you overstrop your blade, depending. With convex, I've never heard that. I never heard that being an issue. But if you got a Scandi, just keep that in mind. Now, there may be someone out there that may say, no, that's not true. And then great. Let us know in the comments. But that's just kind of been my experience, mostly from what I heard. Again, the example of that Mountain Lagoon and how they drifted away from the Scandi and went to the convex. But food for thought. And at the end of the day, you need to try out what works best for you. So that's why this system for me, that's what works best for me and what I've done over the years. Now, I know freehand sharpening can be challenging for some people, but the best way to do it, to get into it, if you've never tried it or you're struggling with it, get yourself a cheap little knife, a 99-cent store, Walmart, whatever, pick your flavor. Yeah, an old hickory knife, and work on maintaining an angle. I had mentioned about the oh gosh, what was it? The work sharp. I wish I would have brought it, because it does have the pocket sharpener. It does have those angles, and again, those of you that are frequent viewers of YouTube and knife sharpening know what I'm talking about. But the work sharp gear pocket sharpener, maybe someone could throw that in the comments or a link or whatever.
I'll put a photo of it in this video.
Thank you, John. You do have angles, and putting, let's say this is our knife, if put that knife up against the angles and maintain that, you develop the muscle memory, and that way you can always maintain that angle and then change the angle depending on the thickness of the blade, as well as also working on different types of movements across the stone. If someone presents to me a knife that's really dull and I got to work really quick in order to save time, I'm doing very aggressive movements. Forward and back, flipping it over, forward and back, checking the edge, seeing which way I'm controlling the burr. I want to develop the burr. So if you're new to this and don't know what I'm referring to regarding to the burr, there's a lot of videos out there regarding freehand knife sharpening. Maybe one day we'll actually sit down and do that, but kind of glossing over things just for the sake of time. But doing aggressive movements that I'm referring to, whether it's circular or back and forth, you got to maintain that angle. And if you don't have that muscle memory, you're probably just going to work against yourself. But these are things like everything else, whether it's archery, hunting, painting, whatever. You got to get the dirt time in, get the time in and work at it in a controlled environment. And always starting with inexpensive equipment is always the best way to do it. I think that kind of covers it. I hope I didn't get too much on any tangents, but maybe this will give you an idea. Again, I'm a huge fan of Easy Lap. I think Easy Lap is one of the better brands. The stone that I have at home for my larger blades, it's a 2x6 plate that I have since removed years ago off of the original about 1/2 inch mount, wooden mount, and it's now on a much taller mount so that I can grip it. I wish I would have brought it to show. But anyways,
I'll have you send me a photo and I'll put it in this video.
We'll post a photo of it. I've had that for over 20 years and it's still going on strong. So I'm a big fan of Easy Lap. And then I have also a much larger strop, and we'll have to throw a picture of that on. So but that's for the bigger kitchen knives, bigger projects. And like everything else, putting in the time and getting the experience so that when I am out in the field and I do have my little kit, it's not any guesswork as to what needs to happen. So all I can really say at this point is thank you very much for your time and attention. Hopefully this has inspired some of you guys to learn how to get into doing some freehand. I know there's a lot of good electrical implements out there. Speaking of workshop, they have some really good ones, but where are you going to plug that in if you're out in the field? And sometimes I'm not saying it could happen. Introducing that high speed to a blade, you're possibly introducing excessive heat, and that could ruin the temperament. So if you haven't learned how to do that, try to pick it up. There's a lot of really good videos out there on freehand knife sharpening and how to go about it, but you're also going to run into a lot of differences of opinion regarding natural stones, Japanese water stones, and diamond plates. For me, ease and convenience. That way I don't have to worry about leveling out the stone at the end or soaking it, drying it, and carrying multiple stones. One-stop shop right here, but all this other accoutrements is because of what I like to do. So once again, thanks for your time and attention. I really appreciate it. See you guys on the next video. Take care.